Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. I'm Kirk Henderson, joined as always by Josh Bowe. We are editors over at Mavs Moneyball as well. Josh, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay. Always. We got a Mountain Time game that's a blowout, so that's not a lot of fun to stay up late to watch the Mavericks get crushed.
Are we really up? I was just thinking about that. Are we really up that much later? That game was so out of hand. We're talking to you. It's about 10:30 on Monday night, December 18th. And the Mavericks lost 130 to 104. And the game was over about, 6 minutes into the third quarter. And things just kind of ran from there. So am I crazy, or am I just kind of hopped up on caffeine?
That was pretty fast. That was a decently fast game. It definitely helped that the game was over for most of the second half and basically all of the fourth quarter, because I felt like there were no stoppages of play in the fourth quarter except for timeouts.
Well, the game, I need to go look at the box score of this, because it's granted, I'm not this has nothing to do with the overall point of the game. In the first half, the Nuggets were called for 4 total fouls.
Yeah.
They ended up getting called for 19 fouls. So that ended up evening out in a big way. But it's just the game just kind of popped, moved along. The Mavericks got the crap kicked out of them. The only reason the game was remotely close at any given time was Luka Doncic being incandescent from 3. I'm trying to think about how to talk about this game in any sort of reasonable context, because for me, this game felt like a blowout by the third quarter, just due to who the Mavericks were missing. So they're missing Kyrie Irving. They're missing Maxi Kleber, but Kleber hasn't been with the team forever. Josh Green is still out. Derek Lively is out. Am I missing anybody?
And I don't think so.
I think we could argue Grant Williams was out again, because he just and so it's just this was, if the Mavericks were going to win this game, it was going to take an absolutely bananas performance from Luka Doncic and a couple of role players stepping up in a big way. And what we experienced tonight was Luka Doncic playing pretty amazing offense, some hit or miss defense, and then no one else on the Mavericks stepping up. Literally no one else. So the Mavericks were 41 for 92 from the floor. If you take out Luka's makes and misses, that is 24. So they were 28 for 68 from the floor. Everybody else, that is a whopping 41% from the floor.
Higher than I thought.
Yeah, it is higher than I thought,
watching,
to be candid.
Live. Yeah.
Well, it felt like no one could hit anything, and it's just I'm sort of at a loss for how to talk about this game, because when you're down this many starters playing against a team that is sort of designed to beat the hell out of a team like you, I don't want to overreact too much. I do want to talk about some specific guys and the fact that they had some opportunities to step up and didn't. But beyond that, I'm not really, I think I've seen some clamoring for Jason Kidd's head for not playing Holmes. It's just, we talked about this the first time the Mavericks played the Nuggets. The Nuggets are bigger than the Mavericks at every position but point guard. Every single position. I guess maybe Lively is taller than Jokic, but when Lively's not playing tonight, they really were. At one point in time, I saw Jaden Hardy on Aaron Gordon. That was a matchup. That's not a thing. What do you think? What should we even talk about here?
The Derek Lively effect was in full force. If you want to argue Derek Lively is the second most indispensable Maverick on the roster, I don't want to get in a fight with Kyrie Irving fans, so I typically don't talk about that much on this podcast. But if you wanted to make an argument for that point, this was your work. You showed your work in this game, because Kirk, let me tell you, the Nuggets shot 21 of 24 in the restricted area. That is 87.5%. 60 points in the paint. And then this doesn't really have much to do with Lively, but 32 fast break points. Basically, the Nuggets just got as many easy baskets as they wanted. And Lively, being a pretty good rim protector for a 19-year-old, has, especially like the last few weeks, his block numbers have been good. The opposing team shooting at the rim has been pretty good.
Right.
Overall numbers are still kind of bleh because, I mean, there's just not enough defenders on the roster after Lively and Jones and maybe Grant Williams. But yeah, I mean, the Nuggets could do whatever they wanted when they got into the paint and near the basket. And there was just nothing the Mavericks could do. And to be honest, I credit the Mavericks that this was a fairly competitive game for the first 24 minutes, even the Nuggets led by 9, when this could have been, they could have been up by 30 by the end of halftime. I mean, with the way that they're playing, Nuggets were just kind of missing some jumpers and maybe not as locked into the game as they needed to. And the Mavericks were pretty frisky. Luke had 28 in the first half. So it felt like the Mavericks kind of emptied the chamber in the first half to try to keep up, and it was commendable, but there's just no way. The Nuggets were at full strength for the first time in a little bit because Murray's been hurt for a little bit, and Caldwell Pope had a concussion, and they have the best starting 5 in basketball. Even when the Mavericks are fully healthy, we saw earlier this season, the Nuggets are gonna take this team to the woodshed because it's just that much of a talent disparity. But it was a noticeable difference.
There's like a styles make fights argument that always drives me crazy when the Nuggets play the Mavericks, because I was watching the Denver broadcast. The Denver broadcast has a 3-man booth, and this is a little bit of a side note, but it actually plays into what I'm talking about. 3-man booths can be really awkward. And I think when the Mavericks do 2 on the road and 3 at home, it gives me like this sense of balance that I like. And I didn't really realize I liked it until I've been listening to some of these other broadcasts. But it was really between that and then the NBA TV halftime show, where it's a lot of like subliminal, like not even subliminal. It's just talking about how the Mavericks play a certain kind of way. And I was talking to a friend of me of the show, Matt Moore, during the game about this. He's just like, I cannot stand watching these guys play. Are you telling me it's that substantively different with Lively and Kyrie? Yeah. And the answer is yes. Like that is like, it is substantively different. Matt pulled up during the game. He's like, Luka's on pace to basically triple his catch and shoot threes. And that's a pretty good example of them playing differently than they have last year.
When Kyrie's on the floor, the pace is different. Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, this felt like a game that just allowed for confirmation bias. If you are frustrated by the Dallas Mavericks or don't think they're very good, you're watching this game and it confirms everything you have to say about them. And that's sometimes it be like that sometimes. But I don't want to overreact to it, because it's like, this is who did you want? Like, I keep having these discussions with different people online where I'm like, who do you want to take these shots? Who do you want to have these things go on? I don't, the answer is, with the roster that they had out there tonight, there's not that many different people. There's just nobody left. Guys got opportunities tonight, and literally no one showed out. Now, did they show out because they're bad, or did they show out because Denver is so much bigger than them? That's a discussion that we can have. And I think that's at least interesting. But I'm not games like this, when they're on national TV, suck a little more. And at least Luka showed up offensively tonight. I could kill him with some of the stuff he does defensively, where it's like, you've got to. The Nuggets clearly were like, when Luka talks, we're going to throw the ball ahead.
Yes, they punished them in transition,
and it was his fault. And I have these people telling me on the internet, it's like, oh, well, he's got the flu, man. And I'm like, the flu. There isn't a symptom of the flu that I'm aware of that results in you talking to the refs. That's not a symptom of the flu. That's a symptom of Luka Doncic. Now, he's right. He got hit in the face like 6 times tonight. But I just can't keep having these same discussions over and over again where you give up points in frustrating situations is because you want to make a point. It becomes a cyclical thing. You bitch to the refs, they're not going to give you more calls. They're just not. So it's like, please stop doing that. But on the flip side, I'm just like, this was a game where it felt pretty written in the stars. And, what Gonzalo in the chat says, I'm not really stressed out about this. Neither am I, but I don't know. I do want to talk about some specific guys because it's like when you have the chance to step up and you don't, that concerns me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the fast break stuff was bad. The kind of telltale of this game, I've got the numbers up. So, like, the first half, the Mavericks kind of got away with some things because they were playing better than Denver in the half court, and Denver was basically getting all their buckets in transition. And it was like, okay, so one of two things are either going to happen. The Mavericks are going to tighten up transition defense and maybe get back into the game because we've seen historically that they can usually outplay teams, even better teams than them, if they play a half court game. Or the transition gets away from them, and the half court stuff doesn't work. I mean, it all fell apart in the second half. Denver kicked their ass in the half court tonight. They scored. I'm on cleaning the glass right now. In the half court, they scored 109.8 points per play per 100 half court plays. So it's how many points did the team score per 100 half court plays? Denver had 109.8. The Mavericks had 87.8. And usually that number is Mavericks positive in a big way, even against better teams. And then the transition was, Denver had 32 fast break points. They scored 16 points per 100 transition possessions. So, what happened was the half court got worse and the transition defense didn't get any better in the second half. So, they just really ran away with it. And
and the offense wasn't really that good in the first half. It was Luka make batshit crazy shot.
Yeah, Derek Jones Jr. Non-Luka Mavs only made seven 3-pointers combined. Luka had 6. Jones Jr., Grant Williams, and Tim Hardaway Jr., who are basically the 3 main spot-up guys, combined to go 3 of, 16 from 3, which is not good, obviously. Hardaway was pretty bad tonight. They only had one other guy in double figures, which was Dante Exum. Everyone else was in single digits. It was just without Lively. Yeah, it's an offensive game, and even with Lively, he gives you some added offense too. So, this had to be a game where they made like 18, 19, 23s, and Denver makes like 12. That was the only way. And I think what is discouraging, there's a couple of things that I want to say. Like, it's the losing to the Nuggets on the road with this shorthanded roster is not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. If I had to say there are like 2 things that concern me, it's that 1, we're going to talk about like guys that got more opportunities that step up, and that kind of stinks. And 2, the Nuggets, I feel like the Nuggets the Mavericks didn't force the Nuggets to give them their best shot. Jokic had 8, 9, and 7.
He was so bored. He was so bored.
He was playing this like a preseason game. And then and what really won this game for the Nuggets and made it such a blowout was how good the bench was. The Nuggets starters are really good. Don't make no bones about it. Defensively, they were great. I thought Gordon, Porter, and Caldwell Pope, their size made a big, big difference in closeouts to those shooters, because you close out on Jones, you close out on Grant Williams. It kind of murks up the possession when you're forcing them to do things other than spot up and shoot. I felt like the Nuggets were really good at that. But man, Najee had 14, Watson 10, Reggie Jackson 20, Strother 12. To get beat by their bench when you're shorthanded just kind of stings a little bit more, because it's like, well, if Jokic had 35 and 10 or something, like he had a crazy night, then you're like, okay, whatever. But it felt like the Nuggets were playing this like a preseason game at times, and they were still able to dominate the game, and that's a little discouraging.
All right, so we're going to take a second here, and I'm going to ask for you guys to consider going down and hitting like on the stream. That would be great while you're here. If you could also consider subscribing to the show. It seems my lofty expectations for hoping to get to 5,000 subs by the end of the year is not actually going to happen.
Damn you, Apple Podcasts.
Well, not just Apple. YouTube's completely different bear. And, if the Mavericks, maybe after football, we'll see a little bit of spike, but, sometimes growth comes in fits and starts. But if you could subscribe to the show, I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you could leave a comment on the video after this. So not like in the live chat when you're in it, but you go back and like there's an actual like the video that's posted. If you leave comments like that, it's very helpful to Josh and I. We're getting closer to figuring out the Apple issue. I saw a guy on the show today leave a comment who's like, I'm really sad that you've stopped posting your podcast. And I'm like, this is what's so frustrating about this. I cannot get the message out that Apple is not working. That is what it is. But we'll make progress eventually. And I hope to have it figured out soon because it's crushing Josh and I. Like we make a little bit of money off this, but Apple is 70% of our downloads. So it's like, what are you going to do? All right, that's our problem, not yours. Okay, so back to sort of the conversation at hand. I would like to talk about the players, and then I would like to talk a little bit about the coaching strategy with this, and then I would like to sort of finish off with where the fan base on the internet, which is a different element than the fan base in general, is with wanting to build stuff with this team. So who do we want to talk about first?
Do you want to go to the guy that's gotten us most fired up? Or at least you most fired up?
No, we'll save him for a little bit because it's not his fault. I'm going to simmer on him a little bit. But like Grant, I think we need Grant, then? I think we need to have the Grant Williams talk because Grant is the nice part about Dorian Finney-Smith is that he was a lunch pail guy. Grant Williams talks entirely too much shit to be this mediocre. Just I don't know, you know, I don't know what he brings on a night-to-night basis that we should be fired up about. Like when he's hitting shots, sure, but he's not been particularly good on defense. Like he can't guard a guy who's able to move. He's pretty good in the post, I think, and sometimes paint stuff. But at the end of the day, he's 6'5". He missed a right-handed layup today. I get kind of sick of watching him, and it's too soon for that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is too soon for that. So for me, I know we talked about this a lot in our Slack because we definitely have some hot takes about Grant Williams that float around our Slack. For me, it's like, I don't know, because this is kind of what I expected. Not to disparage Grant, but like,
he's not super expensive. It's not an arm and a leg for him. I mean, that 2030 draft pick is going to terrify me until the day until we flip picks, you know, when you and I are in our 50s or whenever the fuck that is.
Yeah, but he's averaging a shade under 10 per game, so 9.7. About 3. The rebounds are a little low, 3.7, considering his increased role. You know, he's not an assist guy. He's not a big steals or blocks guy. But, you know, about 10 points per game on, you know, close to 40% shooting. He's at 39.8. It's kind of what I thought was going to happen going in. Like maybe top side, it would be a little bit better in terms of maybe a little bit more scoring, a little bit more rebounding. But when I wrote about this acquisition, you know, there was a lot of people that kind of thought he was someone like in a different mold.
Like more of a 3
or Reggie. Yeah, or just more different stylistically type of player in terms of like getting unassisted buckets and being like able to drive with the ball and just being a little bit more well-rounded than kind of what Dorian and Reggie had turned into, they were literally just standstill spot-up shooters for the most part. Mm-hmm. Dorian would crash the offensive glass and occasionally get some good drives, but you know those guys were both under 3 drives per game during their tenure here.
Yeah.
And Grant, you were thinking, okay, maybe Grant's not a huge driver per game, but maybe he gets in like the 3 range, which makes a difference. You get 1 or 2 more drives per game from a role player that can be productive. So I think fans, I think the expectations were just a little out of whack. I think people just thought he was going to be this completely different type of player when really it's just he's just, you know, solid starter, and the reason why you get him and you know, he's there to kind of replace some of the Dorian Reggie minutes, but he's also younger. He's 24, cost controlled. You know, I think both Reggie and Dorian were nearing 30. I think Reggie was already over 30. Like, it wasn't more like, hey, we have made this spot better than before. It's more, we've reinforced it now to kind of get back to where we were after the Kyrie trade, which left them totally depleted at 3-and-D wings. And he's young, so we'll see, you know, what happens. So, I understand that there's some disappointment, but I think if there is a lot of it, it's got to stem from some out of whack expectations because he was never that player in Boston. Like over 70% of his buckets in Boston were assisted. Almost all of his shots were spot up threes. And so I just kind of expected that to happen in Dallas. I mean, he's streaky for sure. I think after the first 7 games, he's been like near 30% from 3. So that's not great. And I guess the one thing that is a little disappointing, his 2-point percentage just kind of fallen off a cliff. He was 57% 2 years ago, 55% on 2s last season. Now he's at 48. And you think playing with, like, usually guys play with Luka, their 2-point, all their percentages rise. You get easier buckets. He's been a little iffy inside the arc, which, that's not ideal. You want him being able to capitalize on those easy baskets. Like, we've seen him miss some bunnies in the paint. We've seen him miss some easy mid-range jumpers when he gets a closeout or in a 4-on-3 where he catches the ball at the elbow off a double. So that needs to be better for sure. But I don't know. Call me. I don't know if I'm not being hard enough or not being critical enough, but it just does. His performance just doesn't faze me because I was just kind of expecting what he's doing right now.
That's interesting.
You feel differently though, right?
I feel differently because
you probably have a point on the defense. We probably should talk more about him not.
The fact that he just can't stay in front of anybody. Like, he really can't stay in front of anybody. And he looks nonchalant about it. That pisses me off. What I'm going to talk about in relation to him, I can't back up with numbers, but back up in vibes. The posting of Batman photos after the Laker win, the being a big shit talker. He talks nearly as much as Luka at the refs. He really, really does. And you're not good enough to do that. Like, if I don't like Luka doing it, I really don't like Grant Williams doing it. And there's just an element of him where I had mentioned prior to the season that I'm nearly 100,000% positive on this. I'm sure all these guys get along. This is not what I'm about to say. But Grant Williams' style is grating. His personality, probably on the court, can be grating. That doesn't mean these guys don't like each other. But it's like, if you're going to be putting up ho-hum bullshit games, you really can't run your mouth and call yourself a leader. You can't. That's not a thing. Brian Cardinal was there on the Mavericks bench in the 2011 season and doing certain things, but he wasn't. You don't want to call him like a mascot. That's disrespectful, but he had a role within the team to be kind of the rah-rah guy, and people didn't expect a lot from him. I think that the team needs more from Grant Williams, and when he doesn't perform, doesn't perform, it's just annoying. It's annoying. And so he'll improve. He'll play better. Tonight's, it's not necessarily fair to dump on him, but he's been kind of bleh for a while. He had a great Lakers game. That was it. His game log is a mess. And I just they need more from him. The next guy that I think we need to just sort of have a sobering discussion on is Grant Williams is 4 of his last 26 from 3, if I can do math correctly. And that was gonna happen.
Are you talking about Grant or Derek Jones Jr.?
Derek Jones Jr. was 4 of 26 from 3 over those last 5 games. And to me, this was gonna happen. And so I'm less frustrated by him, and I understanding that it's just like these wild swings when you're kind of a ho-hum to bad shooter, which is what Derek Williams is for his career. It's part of it. And
and also Jones was like literally the last offseason move they made. That's right. Minimum signing. It's different level of expectation compared to a trade multi-year deal starter. The one thing with Jones, the thing that was crazy was his 3-point shooting. He was making a ton of above the break threes early on. And so that I knew was going to cool off because he is not, he's not that guy. Right. But I thought maybe his corner 3 would help stabilize it so he didn't fall off a cliff. He's missing a lot of corner 3s. He was 0 for 4 tonight from the corners. So it's understandable that his 3-point percentage is cooling off because he was not going to be a 30. He was like 38 or 40 after the first week of the season from above the break threes. Like, that was obviously going to go down. But the fact that he hasn't really stabilized it with his corner 3s as much as he probably should, I would need to look it up. But I feel just watching it, without looking it up, just eye test, I feel like his corner 3 is at a lower percentage than what he's normally made for his career. And that's the part that's that needs to change for sure. Cause he's not going to be a dynamite above the break shooter all season.
No. Then I think there's really just one. I mean, I want to talk about Tim Hardaway Jr. in the context of something different a little bit later. So the last guy that we really have to that saw that saw minutes tonight that really drove me crazy is Jaden Hardy. The Jaden Hardy experiment for me, when everyone is healthy, is over for this season. I am no longer interested in seeing him play basketball. 18 minutes. Almost 19 minutes, 3 of 9 from the floor, 4 assists, -13. You're probably saying, Kirk, like, what? Why are you kicking this guy? He has zero situational awareness, zero. And this, like, I was just thinking about this. I've seen him try to take off the dribble just this season alone. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Reeves from the Lakers, Austin Reeves, and Alex Caruso. That's 3 guys off the top of my head. Those are 3 of the best perimeter defenders in the league. And he has the loosest, laziest handle paired with no first step. And it always results in a bullshit 15-footer in the middle of the lane that he either luckily hits or is just so horrible that it's almost a turnover. He doesn't have, I hate this phrase, but he doesn't have a bag. He doesn't have the handles to do the stuff that he wants to do. If the Mavericks are finding him on the move where he's already moving, I love watching him play. If he catches the ball and fires away a shot, I'm happy with it. I cannot see him in a dribbling position anymore. He's also really bad at defense, but so is the rest of the team. So I'm trying not to be too hard on him in that respect. But this experiment with Hardy is donezo for me. Him and Josh Green have shown nothing to me at this point, and I think they need to shorten the rotation. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I can. When everything's full strength, I can. Hardy hasn't done anything to prove himself to be getting a shot. The thing with Hardy is, I didn't want to be an asshole about it, but I mean, he went 2 consecutive summer leagues where he looked terrible. And that's not to say if you look bad in summer league, you are destined to be a bad player.
Right.
But the things that he was bad at are not going to get better when you're playing against non-summer league players. Like when you were watching him in summer league, he couldn't get by anyone. He couldn't create separation. He got to the free throw line a lot, but he didn't get a lot of clean looks to the basket. He couldn't shake his defender a lot. He was able to kind of herk and jerk his way to get some fouls drawn, but that's different than like being able to create separation, get a clean look for yourself at the basket. So, the counter to that has been, well, he's not going to need to do that in Dallas because there's Luka and Kyrie. He just needs to be a good spot up shooter and all that stuff. And
which they just haven't put him. They haven't put him in that position
because of the Kyrie injuries. Okay. And when everyone's healthy, it's like, okay, well, why do you need to play him? They had to last season because they just didn't have anyone, but now you've got Exum and you've got Tim healthy and you've got Seth Curry getting some minutes as well. But there's a lot of guards on the team. It's just the minute rotation is just way different than what it was last season, where sometimes he was the third guard on the team, depending on injury. How injuries shook out. Yep. So I don't think he's been able to be in that off ball position as much. And he's going to have to play when Kyrie's hurt, when Josh Green's hurt, because those are your only other 2 kind of like offensive kind of creators, maybe besides Exum. And he can't get by anyone. He couldn't get by anyone in summer league. So why is he going to get by Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Michael Porter and Aaron Gordon and these Nuggets players? Like it's just not going to happen. So, I feel like the only way to salvage his season is if he's playing more of that off-ball role. But then that's the catch-22 of the only way you can really get him to play off ball is if like Luka and Kyrie are healthy. And if Luka and Kyrie are healthy, they're playing so much.
No.
And so is Exum. Where the minutes just aren't there. So, it's a little disappointing, but it's another one of those like Grant Williams things where it's like, I'm not shocked because like I was really stunned at his lack of growth in summer league. Like he looked
he harkened back.
He physically looked better. Like his body looked better.
Oh yeah.
But his game did not look that different. And again, he struggled in 2 summer leagues. That doesn't mean he's a bust or he's going to be bad. No. But it's just that's not a good omen. I'll just say that.
Well, and we went into the season kind of saying, hey, the Mavericks have a potential at interesting depth because you knew that there were going to be injuries and you knew guys were going to get opportunities.
Yeah.
And the point I'm trying to make is that in these opportunities, Hardy has done nothing. And that's really frustrating.
And you want to see something like, okay, what did you take from rookie to sophomore year? That where did your game get better? And I'm not really seeing it. Besides the fact that he's worked on his body, maybe and he looks physically better, but in terms of his game and production, I'm just not seeing where the offseason work went, which is a little disappointing.
That's right.
It's not like he's not working on stuff. Like these guys are all professionals, so that part's just frustrating.
I want to make sort of two more points. One thing relating to like coaching decisions tonight, because Holmes was available to play, Richaun Holmes, and I don't think he played. Did he?
He played 7 minutes, mostly garbage time.
7 minutes, yeah, mostly garbage time minutes. And so I'm not here to defend Jason Kidd, but you were not going to beat the Nuggets. Richaun Holmes wasn't going to be like a key difference maker. You were going to beat the Nuggets by scoring a lot of points. That was how you were going to beat the Nuggets. It wasn't going to be like Holmes doesn't really add a lot defensively, though I like watching him try because he battles hard. I think he could have helped with the defensive rebounding a little bit, but not enough to swing the game by 20-something points. So Kidd went with like a pure 5-out offense. And there's some folks earlier in the chat noting how frustrated they were seeing Markieff Morris play. Markieff Morris was the 14th man signed. Like he has a partially guaranteed contract for like $200,000. He was never meant to play any minutes in this roster. But you have so many guys, big guys hurt. He's basically playing emergency 5, even though he is at best a standstill power forward shooter. And
he played well against Portland, so I think Kidd just wanted to, he rewarded him for playing well in that Portland win. So
I understand if you're frustrated why Holmes didn't play, but I think if Holmes was sick, then he was questionable right up until game time. There was probably just a decision to make. We're not going to do this, right? That's just sort of where I think.
Yeah, and I mean, they gave him. Everyone yelled and screamed like, "Why is Dwight Powell playing? Why is Dwight Powell playing?" And Kidd put Holmes in, like he benched. There were like late November, he benched Powell for the most part, and Holmes was the backup, first big off the bench after when Lively would take his first break, and he didn't really do much with it. Like he played 23 minutes in a win against the Lakers. He had 10 rebounds. That was cool. He had a block shot, and then he played 21 minutes in a blowout loss to the Clippers and did basically nothing. He played 13 minutes against the Rockets after that, had 4 fouls in 13 minutes, 3 rebounds, like again, not really productive. Played 18 minutes then in a blowout loss to a bad Memphis team. He had 5 and 7, and it's like, all right. So he tried. He gave him, like a 4-game audition to be the first big off the bench, and it just, the minutes didn't look that great. So
you're just swapping.
I don't really.
I explained this to someone today where I said when it comes to these kind of players, you're essentially swapping out bad traits for different bad traits. You're not finding a solution. You're finding maybe a less bad problem. That's sort of that's just how roster construction is, unless you care about the draft, unless you do what Denver has done, and that's why we're one of the best teams in the league. Like the Mavericks have had roster building problems going back nearly 10 years. They look to solve all their solutions in a quick, what's the flex tape on the gallon of water? It's like free agency has never been a salve for them, but they did pretty well this offseason, but they weren't going to fix all this in a day. And like that kind of brings me to the last point and something I wanted to talk about.
Can I bring up a Holmes number just before?
Yeah, please do.
He's played 199 possessions with the Mavericks, according to Cleaning the Glass, and the Mavericks are a minus 9.7 points per 100 possessions with Holmes.
That seems bad.
So can we please, we can move on.
So I woke up. I some days on Mondays in particular, I don't check social media till like 11 o'clock in the morning. And I got online today to see a ongoing discussion because a Pistons podcaster for The Athletic said the Mavericks have shown some interest in the Pistons' current starting center, Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah Stewart is 6'8", 250 pounds. You may recall him from such instances as 19 people having to hold him back as he went ballistic at LeBron James, I think 2 seasons ago. Truly hilarious video if you want to watch it. He looks like a deranged lunatic, and I can see the appeal for why you would like him on the Mavericks just for that alone. I'm not super interested in talking about Stewart in so much as I am the concept of where I am with this team. So you're probably listening to this show, and if you're a hardcore listener, you know that I tend to be pretty bitchy about just about everything. But I've been in a delightful place with this team overall because 16-9, now 16-10 is better than just about any start I could have possibly imagined. And I look ahead at the upcoming schedule, and I don't see patches where I think the Mavericks are going to get destroyed. I really don't. And the injuries are going to, guys need to get healthy. That's kind of a given for me. But you match these guys up. They play Portland 2 more times in the next month. They play Memphis again, which is still ravaged by injuries. They play Golden State a couple of times, who is obviously taking a little bit of a hit. Yes, there are some very good teams, but that's the nature of this. And my position has been for a couple of weeks now that I think the Mavericks are better than about 20 teams. That, I think they're in the top 10, top 11. That's pretty awesome. And I'm enjoying them being pretty dang good. And what I am noticing, and I just sort of want to get your take on this, is that I'm sensing that a lot of fans, for some reason, expected or hoped for a championship level leap from these Mavericks after missing the play-in last year. Granted, they tanked, but I'm just sort of baffled by all of this, where it's like, oh, well, if we're not competing for a championship, it's a waste of a season. In a big picture sense, I get that because you're talking about Luka Doncic, but you weren't going to fix this in a season. So am I nuts? I feel so weird being the quasi-positive one.
No, I feel the same way as you. I think we've repeated that line a lot. You weren't going to fix it in one summer, weren't going to fix it in one off season. I wonder if some of it is coming from not like championship or bust, but the fan base just being excited about the hot start and wanting to capitalize on it. They're third in the West, and now maybe people are thinking, wait, are we a contender? Well, maybe we only need this 1 or 2 more pieces and we're a championship team. So I'm assuming that's where some of it's coming from. As opposed to if they started bad, people would just be like, just get rid of these crappy players. But now it's like, I think people are just excited about the hot start, and they want to see the team make a deep run of the playoffs because now they think that they have a chance. Whereas before, if they were like in 6th or 7th right now, maybe people would want to maybe hold a little steady at the trade deadline. But yeah, I don't know. For me, it's like with their limited, they just have such limited trade ammo right now. I don't see the point in doing a move like they did in 2020 for JJ Redick, where you're trading like a rotation-ish guy and like draft picks, a draft pick, to get like some added like depth. I don't see the point in them trading any draft capital right now unless that is going towards a bigger deal that gets them a bona fide starter. Like the idea of them like trading some seconds and Jaden Hardy to get, I don't know, an Isaiah Stewart or someone of his ilk who would be like a fringe starter or 6th or 7th man when you're fully healthy. Like, sure, they could use that. Like, it wouldn't be that it would be like he wouldn't be useful or that type of player wouldn't be useful, but they're already scraping the barrel a little bit with trade ammo since they still owe the pick to the Knicks that they're thankfully, knock on wood, that they're going to convey. They do not have a lot of seconds left. I think they got some back this summer and some of the moves they made. They don't have a lot of wiggle room with cap space. Like, I don't know. I feel like if they're going to trade a future first or a future second or someone like Timmy or Josh Green or Hardy, they need to be getting back something more substantial than this could be like a 5th or 6th or 7th man. Like, which is kind of where I see Isaiah Stewart, like talent range plugging in. So yeah, I think they need to hold their cards to the chest a little bit more and maybe hold their chips, and then they can push in for more of like a bigger all-in move, somewhat similar to what the Nuggets did with Aaron Gordon. Like they kind of felt like they needed that one more starter next to Jokic and Murray. Like I feel like they just need one more dynamite starter next to Luka and Kyrie, and I don't know if I'd want to like do smaller moves that could pull from that potential, pot that they could push in, maybe get a better player down the road.
And that's so you hit on a lot of things that I want to respond to. So no, this is great. This is why I wanted to have this conversation, because it's important for expectation setting. And I think expectations right now are wildly out of whack. Let's go over the trade assets. The trade assets, they have one first rounder. It's the 2027. That's the only one they can send away until they get out from underneath this Knicks pick, because they sent one away to get Kyrie Irving. I don't think we're talking about one first rounder in a draft 4 years from now, which is probably interesting to a lot of people, but it's not the end all be all. Then you have Tim Hardaway Jr., who I actually think the Mavericks will probably move at some point. I really do think they will attempt to sell high on him.
And they've been trying to trade him for like 4 years, it feels like. So.
Well, I don't really want that. I do think that's what they do. But Tim Hardaway in a first rounder, I don't think is enough for what other teams have on the market. Look at what is being discussed for Lauri Markkanen. Good God, Kevin O'Connor said that he thought as many as 5 first-round picks could change hands for Lauri Markkanen, who is a borderline all-star and the kind of like the caliber of player that we're talking about that will make, and this is important because there's a guy in the chat here said this earlier. His name's Adrian. He talked about players that can make a meaningful difference. I don't want to be a prick, but I'm going to be for a second. Isaiah Stewart, if Isaiah Stewart is on the Mavericks tonight, does he make a meaningful difference in the game? I'm asking. That's not rhetorical.
No.
No. He is a bench player. So you're telling me, guys, that you want to use ammunition to trade for a bench player. Now, there's a lot of great comments in the chat. Friend of the show, Coops says, how can you not want to go all in with Luka playing like this and Lively being this good? You cannot waste years. Let me be clear. I 1000% agree with that notion. The problem is the Mavericks have already wasted years. One of the things that drives me crazy about team building is there is no appreciation for what has gone on prior. No, it's you can't just start over. If we're being really candid, the Mavericks all-in move was Kyrie Irving. That was the all-in move. Now they have to figure it out with the pieces and see how far they can get. I don't.
I mean, listen, if they can. I mean, if they could go to Toronto right now and convince them that, with whatever they have that they can trade and get Pascal Siakam,
yes, do it.
Yeah, dude, go get
do it.
You
go
do it
now.
But what we're trying to say is they do not have a competitive offer for any of those types of players. It's not that we wouldn't love for them to trade for a third starter, borderline all-star guy. Like, they should totally do that if that presents itself to them.
If it's available, I will sit there and go, I am so sorry that I was dead wrong. I'm really excited that Tim Hardaway in a first-round pick got us Pascal Siakam.
Yeah, So
love that. I would love to eat crow over this shit. It's just there's this discussion that comes around, and it's largely social media. We watch the Celtics do this forever, guys. We watch the Celtics go nuts about every player that they thought was good. And the reality is when you have two guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, you're able, like, that's your core starting point. It's like I don't know. I feel very frustrated by this because I don't want to be. I just talked about how important it is. I think that the Mavericks are doing well and being positive, but now I just sort of want to temper expectations because I came into the season of let's make the play-in. Now my expectations have moved to let's avoid the play-in and be in the top 6. Whereas I think everyone else that I'm chatting with regularly, at least on social media, has the let's be a top 4 team in the West and go make the finals. And this team is not a finals built team. That's just the facts. There's no, maybe they could get hot, they could go on a special run, but they don't have the build of a Western Conference or finals team. And nothing they could do this year that I see makes that possible.
Yeah, like I said, if they can make a big trade for what they think would be a bona fide third best player, a third starter next to Luka and Kyrie, do it. If they can pull it off, they can pull it off. But to me, just like the smaller moves, like a Stewart, or what would be else something that's comparable to Stewart. Even something like, this is your boy, but like an Alex Caruso who I really like, but feels like those feel like final piece moves. Like you're trying to fill out the rest of your
Aaron
roster.
Gordon for the Nuggets. And I love the friend of the program, Iztok Franco, used to work with us at Mavs Moneyball. He wrote a piece last year about how the Mavericks need to find that. The Mavericks aren't in a position for that. And it's crazy to even put that out into the universe in hindsight, because I understand what he's going for. But the Mavericks didn't have good enough players to do that. Kuzma's an interesting one. Shout out to Kay in the chat. I would like Kuzma, to me, is kind of a needle mover that would be very, very interesting.
But again, do they have enough to?
I don't think they have enough to get him.
If it's an open bidding, I'm just like, because again, it's one pick, one first rounder until they can get rid of the New York pick. I think what's really hurting this season is you were hoping for leaps from Green and Hardy, because then that's your
then
blue
they become
chip.
Trade fodder. Yeah.
Then those are your blue chip young guys to trade. And those, I mean, if anything, their value has gone down from last season. So, you could talk yourself into, okay, maybe you give them a first, Green, Hardy, Tim Hardaway Jr., some combination of those three, maybe all three. And it's like, here's two really good young blue chip prospects. Here's a future first that could be really good. Then you might be moving the needle a little bit more with some of these better trade targets. But I mean, now that Green and Hardy are basically, I don't know what you're going to get for them right now. You kind of have to wait for Green to come back and rebuild his value, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that makes things a little tougher until they can convey that New York pick, which will allow them to open up the chest a little bit and trade multiple firsts, which will be teams are going to, I think when they can trade multiple firsts, they're going to be very valuable, because teams are going to bet on Luka not being in Dallas long term.
That's it for me, because you open up, what is it? So they owe the 2029 to the Nets. They owe the 2030 in a swap to Spurs. So if you get through this year, you send away the 2024. That opens up the 2025. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if you can trade it immediately. Scott, well, somebody will tell me I'm wrong on this. The point is that it changes things. And you make it to this summer, and I hear you guys. I hear you. You're saying Luka wants to win right now. Luka's also under contract. He's not like, I'm sorry. The players that have multiple years under contract do not have the leverage that they once had. We've just all but seen that. I also don't think Luka wants out. He said on Rachel Nichols' show this week that he's very pleased with the direction this thing is going.
Yeah, Lively is such a huge win.
Huge.
Like that. He's honestly changing the trajectory of the franchise, because him hitting is exactly what we were talking about, where we were like, hey, they have to nail this pick, and it has to be a good player. But this is also why we're like, this is why you get, top 10 picks. This is why the draft is great, because you can hit on a potential talent that's 19 years old, that's cost controlled, that you can, grow with Luka, and potentially maybe he's your third best player. And then you go into the summer and you don't need to spend as much to get your fourth best, if that makes sense. So, I think Lively's growth, I understand that it wants people to hit the fast forward button because he looks so great, but I think he gives them a little bit more latitude in trying to make sure they build this thing the right way.
Yes. Josh, this has been way too long of a podcast for a loss against the Denver Nuggets, but I think it was actually a pretty good discussion. Do you?
Yeah. And I understand, they're third in the West. People they want this to be the year. Luka looks like an MVP. I really don't blame it. I just, I just don't see the point in trading legitimate ammo for a sixth man or fifth man or seventh man. Just rather save that for a more all-in move. And hey, stranger things happen. We didn't think that they could trade for Kristaps when they made the Kristaps trade. I thought they didn't have the ammo for that, and then they did. So
right. I think the distinction between both trading for a starter and then trading for finishing pieces is really, really important. And we're not talking near enough about how, no, that's not true. We've talked so much over the years about how the Mavericks have screwed this pooch. And the fact of the matter was, getting to the draft lottery was so and then getting this was their last ditch effort. If they fucked up this lottery, then maybe the calls for Luka to leave would be going bright and bold right now. So they're in a positive spot. Are you serious with this? This dog always thinks it's playtime. Always. Whatever. Good boy.
He knows we're wrapping up.
He does. Well, so all right. That speaking of that, so you're gonna probably go edit some posts and see what's going on with. We got a post that was turned in about Luka that we're gonna run tomorrow. From Gracie. Really looking forward to that piece. We have our regular stuff up on MavsMoneyball.com. I'm going to go live with our fan show here in just a second. So for those of you who are hanging out, I'm going to throw up a quick break, a video break, and then we're going to come back in here. I'm going to post a link, and then you guys are going to be able to come join the show and tell me why you think I'm an idiot or why you liked this game or didn't like this game. Let's just talk for a little bit. I'm a little bit, what's the old Kevin O'Connor line? Pumped and jacked, just unnecessarily excited for whatever. Because Beef Stew is 22 and getting better. At what? He's 6'8". He's sorry.
I mean,
let's argue about Beef Stew in the next show. I'm really excited. I love it. Okay, so just wait for me for a second, guys. And for those of you listening on the audio show, please leave me a review. Shoot me an email over at, what is our email here? podmaverickpodcast@gmail.com. We can talk a little hoops. I will be missing the Wednesday show, but Josh will be back. Thanks for hanging on here for a few minutes, and we will be right back. All right, guys, welcome back. I'm Kirk Henderson, editor-in-chief over at MavsMoneyball.com. You are joining me on, what is the name of this show? It is not After Dark. It is Pod Maverick Presents Group Therapy. I really need a producer. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and sticking on from the last show. Those of you who are joining me in the YouTube show, if you would like to come up here on stage and talk a little basketball with me, talk about the game, talk about anything that I might have said in the previous show that pissed you off, click that StreamYard link down there that I have hopefully I need to go pin it to the in the YouTube channel. You can come hang out. We'll talk a little ball. I already see I got my man Brian already down there, which I am delighted about, and we will hang out for a little bit and see what's up. It's a really easy platform to join. All you do is click the link from the live YouTube show. You can it pulls you into a different room. You can do it by phone. You can do it at your computer. If you don't want to show your face, you don't have to. If you do, I really want to get to know you and talk a little basketball, because it's much more fun talking with a person than getting angry and rage typing through a screen. So coming up first is our regular guy, Brian. What's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. Just enjoying this Lakers and Knicks game after, it's nice to see some actual basketball. After watching that hospital lineup try to play against the champs and get ran out of there. So, yeah, I'm not as angry about it as people were. I tried my best not to watch this game too closely because I knew what it was going to be.
Sure.
Like, I knew what it was going to be when Luka said he was too sick to show up to shoot around, but then walking into the game, he was walking in with Jokic. I was like, yeah, you know what time it is. He's like, I'm just going to have to go hang with my homie.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, man. Yeah, he had the timing down, and he was doing everything that he could, man. Like, it was – I can't even really say a pathetic display by the role players outside of Exum. Like, Exum was really good,
Exum,
of course,
yeah.
as usual.
Just incredible. We didn't talk about him near enough. He's just so valuable to what the Mavericks do right now. I mean, I really – Josh and I don't talk about this enough, but I'm really buying in on my 30 Rock take that he is their third heat, the way that Dinwiddie and Brunson were the other two heats along with Luka, where I think it gives you three different flavors of guard that do three very different things.
Yeah, what he is that like makes him so valuable is, dude, he's just reliable. Like, you don't have to worry about him isolated in defense. You don't have to worry about him as a team defender. You don't have to worry about what he's going to be doing when he's not on the ball. You don't have to worry about what he's going to be doing when you give him the ball and ask him to create something. And you don't have to worry about him if he gets into the lane, defender's there, and he needs to make a decision, like a simple basketball decision, he usually makes the right one. He's just a good, smart basketball player. And it's that in itself is so valuable on this roster, especially like right now with all the guys and all the bodies that we're missing, where we just don't have that many people outside of Luka who can make decisions for themselves, let alone for other people.
Right.
So, yeah, having him this season has been a godsend, and he's been good again. But I tweeted this a few minutes ago. I was like, y'all, and I know you talked about it, so I'm preaching to the choir. But I was like, man, that Hardy shit is cooked. Like that flash that he showed us in the Memphis game was
I feel
fun,
bad though,
but
because it's like even 10 games ago, you see some of our mutual friends on Twitter and on Reddit and on Facebook that get so excited because when he does something good, it actually looks really good. And then when he does something bad, it looks so awful.
yeah, but if you look at like the ratio of like games where he's flashed something meaningful and games where he hasn't, like last year compared to this year, like last year, every other game when he got, 6, 7, even 8 minutes, he was going out there trying to make the most of them. This season, like he hasn't even been thrust into that much bigger of a role because there have been games where he just hasn't played because Kid is like, you know what, I think Seth is more ready for this moment. I'm going to bring him in, and Hardy's just not going to get off the bench. But we're 25 games in, and he's had one like genuinely good game where he's shown us what he can do and how he can be valuable.
Well, wasn't it
as an
against some
off-ball
like
shooter.
another totally busted team, or am I making that
It was
up?
Memphis.
Yeah, so I don't care. Not to be
Yeah,
mean.
that's my point though. Like, his one game is against Memphis out of 25. It's like, all right, man. And even after that game, like I came in here and I was a bit more encouraged. I was like, okay, I just needed him to show me something, and I figured that might maybe kickstart. And I think he had a game after that where he hit 2 threes and didn't get much burn after that. But dude, he's been so inconsistent otherwise, and the defense is still god awful. The dribbling is still god awful. It's like at this point, I'm where Dwight blocked on Twitter. I'm where he is, where it's like, dude, what were you doing all summer?
I mean, I just think with certain, I mean, at one point in time, he was number one, was one of the top 3 recruits in the nation, which high school recruiting is different, but it's just, we talked about this a little bit, but the G League Ignite guys all kind of stink. It's a small sample size, but there's like the best guy is who? I mean, and it doesn't seem like whatever he was awful with the G League Ignite. That was the thing that was like partially why he fell so much. And so it's like the things that he's good at, the Mavericks haven't been putting him in a situation to be good at them. And then when they try to give him an opportunity to show more, he just can't do it. And I think part of that is just the decision-making. Like, I still can't believe he tries to attack certain guys off the dribble. I mean, if KCP was on me tonight, that's a bright red sign to pass the ball. Cut, go get open, take an open jump shot for all I care. Get something on the move, but do not size up one of the premier defenders for one-on-one basketball in the league.
One of the best perimeter defenders on 2 championship teams.
2. I was so furious. And it's like, and I think back and I get really, I let Twitter over-index my brain, but everyone gets so excited about him. And I'm just like, I don't want to be a hater. Being a hater is sometimes fun, but not against, like, I like the draft. Like, the draft is where I tend to be like, can we please try? We had a guy, I can't see his comments in here because he's commenting on Twitter. Oh, I think it's Armin who's there. He's saying, earlier tonight, he's like, the Mavericks just can't draft anybody. And well, I mean, they did Lively, and they did Lively.
Nico's been pretty good, actually. I don't know,
but it's just but big picture, he's not wrong. They've been kind of ass about the draft because they don't care about it.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I want them to care about it. So when when Hardy looked good last year, I was delighted. I want to be wrong about this. So it vexes me, man. It really vexes me.
Yeah, and it's kind of just gotten to the point where, like, I was still, even like a couple of weeks ago, I was still getting complaints from people in my replies when I was like throwing Hardy and Green together, like in trades or whatever on the trade machine that I was just putting on the timeline for fun for guys who aren't like super needle movers, but I think would fit better what we're trying to do. Some guys who are like some big wings, but lesser known names. And they were just like, no, why would we give up both of them and the pick for that guy? It's like, because neither of them have been good at basketball. And we need more guys on this team who are good at basketball. Yeah. Like that goes for Tim too. I love Tim, and he's been a real integral part of this team for a while now. But at a certain point, like Tim started to slow down. He's not playing as well as he was in that early stretch of the season, those first 15 or so games. He's looked stinky in like 6 of the last 8. And I'll give him some slack where like he's been dealing with the back spasm still. So his back is acting up, and I'll give him that because like he was shooting really well to start the year. But you know how streaky Tim gets. When his shot isn't falling, he's still also like one of the worst defenders in the league. So he's not really helping you there either. So it's not like he's untouchable. So when you see those 3 guys in, fake trades and trade machines and stuff like that, I just don't want people to get too worked up because it's like, man, you got to realize what we're working with here and where we're trying to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this is a good comment from Jared in the chat. He says Hardy is a pretty good second-round pick, but he's still a second-round pick. And that because I was never expecting to find a star in the second round. What I want is a potential functioning role player. Like there was, I don't know if you saw this, and you might not even be old enough to have watched these guys, but seeing Josh Howard and Marquise Daniels hanging out tonight, like sometimes you just want your undrafted free agents and things to pan out now and again. And Marquise Daniels is just such a win in that book for the Mavericks back in the day. And again, this is a good comment from Adrian in the chat. Multiple good comments from Adrian, like your thoughts tonight. He says, "What does sell high mean?" That's a good point. I mean, I don't think you're tricking teams to take Tim Hardaway Jr. But what Josh and I talked about a little bit earlier, and then my friend Harold, who messages me on Twitter a couple of times a day, talked about, it's like if you're trading Hardy, you're trading him as a closing piece for someone who needs shooting, and he might play 15 minutes a game. He's going to go out and get his shots, and that's it. That's a different deal. That's a closing point, more than that, because it's like I tend to. We're multiple people in the chat, Twitter, social media, Facebook, all of it talked about. You're not winning anything if Hardaway's playing 30 points per game. I actually agree, but the other solutions for the Mavericks at the moment are kind of bleak, and I think that's underappreciated in the sense of if you move from Hardaway. Who is taking some of those things? I don't think it's given enough credence where it's like the Mavs go from like the 3rd offense to the 10th offense. They're going to lose more games. I really believe that. Now, I could be wrong, but that's just sort of where I'm sitting at the moment.
Well, no, it's the truth, because when they shifted down from like the 3rd or 4th best offense in the league to like the 9th to 12th, that was during that losing streak.
Yeah. I don't know. This is kind of a never-ending debate, because I think that the expectations are not in line with it's. They want Nico to pull off a miracle. We want Nico to pull off a miracle, and I just don't see the miracle out there to be grabbed. Now, maybe that could happen. I mentioned on the last show about I vehemently disagreed with Iztok's point about, okay, we have to go find our Aaron Gordon. I mean, they already had Jokic, Murray, and then our guy
Michael Porter Jr.
Mm-hmm. So that, like, if you're trading for your 3rd starter as opposed to trading for your 4th, like, kind of like catch-all guy, it's a different situation. It's why I disagree with half the world about Jeremy Grant, and it really is. Like, people really love Jeremy Grant. I have one of my this gentleman, love you, Josh. He comes to Orange Theory with me, and he was talking to me today. And he's like, I really think he could fit. And you and I briefly discussed this last game. I just don't think I was telling our man Kenny today, where I'm just like, he got paid. He's not like, do we really think he's going to go back and do the dirty work and take the 4th most shots on the team? I really don't. I just don't think that. And so it's like, I think if the Mavericks go and make a move, we have to be cognizant of the fact that if they push all their chips in the center of the table, that's the true last move. You trade that 2027 pick, you're not trading anything else. Anything. Do you disagree with that? Like, the Mavericks have taken back 1 first-round pick in 20 years. Do you know what that pick was? Derek Lively. That's the first time in 20 years. We're not going to get more first-round picks because we don't have the assets for it.
Yeah, I agree that if they, I don't know. I don't think it'll be the last move. I think it'll be the last major move.
if we're gonna sell high on anyone, let it be Kyrie. My God, can't even. The people will come to my house if I say that. I'm never gonna say that. Tyler, bold. Sorry, just had to get that out there. I love
like that comment. Yeah, because it's funny. I thought that during the summer, but at this point, no, man, we're here. The bet is made. It's fine. We don't have to move Kyrie or look at moving Kyrie until it becomes absolutely necessary, and we're nowhere near there right now. But yeah, no, if we make a move now with this 2027 pick, I think we're at that point, we get to the summer and okay, we've got 2025 and we've got 2031. I think both of those. Yeah, those two firsts are probably not gonna get you much. It could, I don't know, but again, that would be pulling off a miracle compared to what you could do with 3 free ones and all your young players.
That's right.
But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm not gonna lie. I think what we have now, I do think we could kind of still be in the running for Kuzma, and I think that is a move that moves the needle. It just depends on how fast Nico acts. Because January is going to come and go like that.
Coops was in the chat earlier, and he said, "I know you don't like Kuzma," and I have to admit defeat on Kuzma. I'm wrong. I've been wrong about Kuzma for several years, largely because I get angry that the Lakers are good at stuff like drafting. So
yeah, they've been great, and it's really annoying, especially in the back half of the first and in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
It makes no sense that they can get all the stars they want, and then they're also really good at drafting at the dead last back end of the first round. It's annoying. It's depressing.
Well, hey, thank you for getting us started. You got anything else going?
No, man. Just gonna watch the end of this game. No, I'm not. The Knicks are up 10. I don't care.
All right, go to bed. Go play video games.
Yeah.
Go watch more television. Thanks so much for joining. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me, man.
All right. So I see a new person down there at the bottom that we're going to bring in here who's not been up before. I think it's the same Adrian from the chat. We're going to bring Adrian up. Then we have Micah and Brandon waiting. So remember, if it's the first time, if it's a first time or a more rare glimpse, I'm going to let you come up on stage because we got about 10 folks that cycle in here regularly, and I very much appreciate those guys and gals. We don't have any gals yet. We need invite a woman on the show, Kirk. Jeez. Our show skews. I looked at the data, 97% men. All right, Adrian, how are you?
I'm well. You guys able to hear me?
I am. You sound great. Thanks for joining.
Awesome. So I wanted to rant today about opportunity cost and team building. My biggest pet peeve is seeing fans clamor for mediocre
Xavier?
players. Yes, this is me. This is my burner. You got me.
Oh my God. You're such a fucking troll.
Look, I just wanted to be able to rant like a madman without bringing down the sun.
You could not cover your accent to save your life. That is the best. That's fantastic. That is, oh my God. That this for everybody, Xavier, contributor at Mavs Moneyball, who used to be one of my original green room guys, snuck in here under a burner account. I should have let you play out the string for longer. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What's going on?
So, this is my friend's YouTube TV Gmail account, and I didn't know how to switch it, so that's why. But so, all right. So I'm just gonna rant as though this is still my burner. Pretend it's not me from MLB. So, I hate when fans clamor. I saw it, you posted earlier, right? Somebody said, "Oh, Kirk doesn't want the team to add talent, right? Not in this way." And I thought it was asinine that someone would say that because it ignores opportunity costs, right? If right now the Celtics were to offer the Pistons three first-round picks for Jay Stu, right? Or Isaiah Stu, who everyone's clamoring for. No one would bat an eyelash because they have their core in place. And at that point, they're simply trying to get that one piece that fills a gap and helps take them over that hump. The Mavericks are not in a position to do that. Right? You can afford to overpay for rotational pieces once you have the core of your team established, which we do not. I asked this question in the chat. How many players on the current team would be on the next very good version of the Mavericks? We've got Luka, we've got Kyrie, we've got Lively. Mm-hmm. You tell me who the fourth player is, right?
I think Exum, if he continues apace, is making an incredible case.
And look, if he's able to sustain what he's done this point, hey, he surprised me. I thought fans were idiots.
Sure, yeah, he's a low risk gamble. He's the kind of entry level guy that you hope pans out, and the Mavericks simply haven't had pan out for several years. Entry level. That's not what I mean. Like minimum.
And hey, we on a minimum contract, that is a home run. But ideally, you'd want him to be your 7th or 8th man on a good team, right? The fact that he's forced into being our starter, and on some of these nights with Kyrie out, our second best player, that's indicative of the position that we're in. So when players say, we just need an actual good power forward, or we just need this one guy who fits better, or we just need that. No, we're further away from that, right? Everything that we should, our priority 1, 2, and 3 should be, let's retain as many assets until we position ourselves to acquire a true needle-moving player. Now, once we have a needle-moving player that significantly raises our ceiling, now whatever assets we have left, now we're plugging in holes, right?
Sure.
Now we're going and looking for fit, right? Because you can have 2 players that cost the same, but which one fits more? Which one is going to fit our system? We don't have a system. Our system is pretty much iso ball. Kyrie and Luka are going to alternate, running pick and rolls at the top of the key, and then and we hope that when they pass it to the wide open role players, that
we got to talk about that at some point. I'm not sure if tonight is the night, but I've been arguing all day with somebody on Twitter who basically was like, we don't have to play Luka ball when Luka's not in. And that's a big thing that I've not even bothered to broach, because I'm just like, I don't know how to talk about Tim Hardaway Jr. because I don't think I don't know how to talk about Jason Kidd because I just don't think Jason Kidd is going to get moved.
Right. And then there've been coaches that whenever like their star player, the heliocentric player is out, then you really see their system start to shock. They're like, okay, now I'm going to put my coaching hat on, and you're going to see the system that I wish I could run, but my star is just more important than whatever system I want to run. So we do, we run that offense. What is, to your point, tonight's at the night, but what is Kid showing? There's no weak side movement or anything, right? And then the last thing, can we stop saying so high on THJ, so high on Green? Guys, other GMs have league pass.
Oh, sure.
Watching our players
but I do think someone's going to make a reasonable offer for Tim. I really do, because Kidd is talking up Tim the way he talked up Kristaps Porzingis.
I remember a couple years ago, the Bucks traded like 4 seconds for I forgot who it was at the time, right? But that's what you're looking at. You're not getting a real first. It's going to be a heavily protected first. That is a fake first.
You're trading a bench player for a bench player is what you're doing at best. Yeah, you're not getting a starter for Tim. That's important.
At best, you're not trading Tim the player, you're trading Tim the contract. So if you can trade him for a player on a longer contract that a team is just trying to get underneath because of the new luxury and the apron rules, then yes, he will have value because his contract will run shorter than whatever player we're acquiring. But he, the player, is not bringing in someone who's meaningfully changing the outlook of this team. And we just have to stop that, because it's that mentality that Cuban had. Well, if I just get this one player, or if I just sacrifice and get this one player, then we'll be right there. No. Because you end up overpaying, and look at the contracts we have.
The reason it's worth addressing now, just because we're 25 games in. So you kind of got crushed over the summer for your take that essentially resetting the timeline for a center and a power forward that were both rookies is a extremely high risk gamble that is kind of stupid. Now, the fact that the gamble worked out doesn't really belay. I still understand where your point is coming from. But one of the things you and I have talked about for the better part of 4 years now is the Mavericks have been bled dry slowly of assets. And so the moment you accept that as a fan, I think a lot of this becomes easier. Your expectations change. So it's like when folks really want Luka to be the all-in, they want the Mavericks to go all in for Luka right now. I don't know if you were listening to Josh on our last show, but we were basically saying that doesn't mean anything because they don't have anything to send away. So it's like you make it through this year, you have Lively in year 2, and then you free up a 2025 first to go along with your 2027, and I think you're okay. Because can you trade that 2025 once you're done with the Nick obligation?
Yes.
Okay. So that that's 2 first-round picks. That's in an immediate it's something like that. It's something else.
It puts you in the mix.
That's sort of where you are.
Yeah, if a player has any sort of leverage to where they can kind of help shape their market, it puts you in the mix. If a player feels like, hey, if I go there, I can make a meaningful difference. But if it becomes a bidding war, we're not winning any bidding wars against anybody. Right. When you look at the teams out there with picks, they're better situations, younger talent, more picks. Like there's 6 to 7, maybe 10 teams that are that are better destinations for players if it becomes
That's right.
actual bidding war.
Well, and Alex in the chat makes it, and Alex has been with us for over an hour now, hour and 15 minutes. Really appreciate your hanging out, Alex. He makes a comment where he says, so many mistakes. How can you be mad at fans for clamoring for players? I'm not mad at fans for clamoring for players, but one thing that happens in social media, you start to create an echo chamber, and the Celtics are notorious for this, where it's like, you know who I think's really good? Jaden Hardy. That Jaden Hardy guy's amazing, says someone else. Jaden Hardy can net a first-round pick back. Let's use Jaden Hardy as a draft, as an asset. Let's use the guy that we think sucks as an asset. It becomes this thing. And so the reason I'm trying to do it is not to be a Debbie Downer, it's just to sort of circle it back a little bit to say the Mavericks are going to be okay. I actually believe that. I was very nervous over the summer, but I really, really am excited about where they are relative to the mistakes that they've made, because we've killed them for some of the things that they've done wrong, and rightfully so. You let last summer was an unmitigated, almost franchise altering in a negative way summer. Probably the worst summer they've ever had. Worse than when they let Steve Nash go for nothing. I know you are. I think we all, I have to eat crow on Jalen Brunson. I think a lot of people do, but I also don't. I think that was a situation that was going to go awry at some point, anyways, because the Mavericks would have looked to trade him for a bigger guy. I don't really want to relitigate that at this point, but where we are relative to where we were is pretty amazing. And I think that if we just sort of breathe and let the Maverick front office do what they've done over the last year, and maybe they will get lucky again, the Mavericks could be in a great place, because the thing when you have Luka Doncic as a baseline, you're going to win 60% of your games when he plays.
And look, I think that as fans, right, there's cognitive dissonance between, okay, I'm sitting down, I'm dedicating my time to watch this team win, and I want to feel like the team and the owner, everyone is doing the most to maximize our ability to win, so that I can appreciate the time I'm investing into this team. Other times, it's like, hey, you got to be willing to swallow the tough pill. Look at how long everyone, the national pundits and fans, were telling the Lakers, you need to go ahead and trade both those first-round picks. Just do it. Maximize LeBron's prime, all that. And then what happens? They said no, right? Shout out to the GM. He was an idiot for a long time, but he actually like, no, I'm not trading that pick. And look at what they've done. And in that time, they've made smart, savvy moves that have paid off. And they still have that first round pick. And the players that were available for that first round pick then, if you look at it, they probably would rather have the situation that they have now than the situation that they would have been in had they traded that first. And now they get to have their cake and eat it too. They have an Austin Reeves. They have other players. They have a Rui. They have players that fit, that LeBron can play with. And they also have that one trade asset that if break glass in case of emergency, if they need to pull it, they can, but at least they'll still have that at their disposal versus just trading in whatever they have for somebody that probably was not raising the team ceiling. And that's just the situation where I'm like, look, none of these guys, man, they're not raising the ceiling, right? And if we can get any of these players, look, we're not getting an OG, we're not getting a Siakam. If we can, then I will personally send a basket of edible arrangements.
Yeah, that's what Josh Bowe and I just said. Yeah,
prove me wrong. I would love to be proven wrong.
Please prove us wrong. That would be delighted. And Alex makes a great point. Nico is paying for the sins of a past conglomerate. I agree with that.
Yeah, but all right, I ranted enough, and you outed me, so now I'm going to have to change my account to my real name. But no, it was nice. I've been lurking in the shadows, but now all this time has been me. But
it's great hearing your voice again, man. Talk soon.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, coming up next is Philip. Philip, what's going on, man?
Hey, Kirk.
Welcome to the show. What's going on tonight?
Good. Long time lurker, first time talker.
That's what I'm talking about. First time callers and more occasional callers. We're going to bring you guys up as soon as I see you. So, Philip, what are you thinking tonight? What's going on?
I think I'm just going to continue on the team construction theme.
By all means.
My question is Grant Williams really a starter on a contender?
No.
No. And that's my point, in the sense that everyone wants to say he's the third best player on the team. Maybe, I don't know, because he came off, I don't know. But really, he's actually a bench player. And I think the earlier we realize that, the less frustrated I think people will be with his play.
Yeah.
He's a bench player that's getting starter minutes and it's because we don't have a power forward on our team.
Yep.
Yeah,
and that part's so tough because you look at it and you're like, why can't they just find a stretch four? And it's like they might need to. I think they need a real wing defender and another backup big that can double between 4 and 5. Because I think with Luka, you're playing sort of, stretch basketball anyways. I just don't know where you get those players. I mean, I went through, this is pathetic. I sorted by John Hollinger's PER stat on ESPN just because I wanted the full list of players. And I looked at all power forwards and all centers, like everyone, and who I thought might be remotely available.
Yeah.
And I settled on only one in the entire league. What's his name? The Wizards, Washington Wizards,
Daniel Gafford?
Yes, the Gafford was the only one who I was like, oh, okay, I'd like Gafford. That was all.
Yeah.
Am I
like he's really athletic. Like he's like the Derek Jones of centers. Like he's super athletic.
That might be a me problem because I'm apparently just a professional hater. But I'm like, I look at all these guys and I'm like, what does that guy do? I don't know.
But yeah, Gafford would be a great backup for Lively. I think we still need like a 6'9", 6'10" power forward. If you look, every great team has a big power forward. Like, even if you look at the last 3 games, Grant Williams played against, today it was Aaron Gordon, like 6'9". Last game, Grant Williams was already shooting over, not Grant Williams, Jeremy Grant was shooting over the top of him easily. Cat, 7 foot, shooting straight over top of him. LeBron was bullying him in the Lakers game. I mean, he played okay, but I mean, really. So if every position like Grant has, like he's shorter than most power forwards, and it's a bit annoying. So we need that 6'9", 6'10" power forward.
There's some interesting suggestions where it's like I think the draft compensation is so centered among the Thunder and the Utah Jazz that it's basically screwed with the market. Where it's like T-Bone says in the chat, would John Collins be of interest? He's on the trade block. I don't know. I don't like. To me, the answer is probably not. But the fact of the matter is, what what Utah is going to demand for him is going to be more than what the Mavericks can offer. Either way, it's maddening.
But also, he makes what, $25 million, and you're
a lot of money.
Like that's a lot of money for somebody who may not be that good. I don't know how good he's okay. He's not bad, but
sure,
$25 million for not an all-star. I don't know. But the other thing you mentioned, I heard you and Josh talking about Kyrie being the all-in move, and I don't know if he is. Then what happens if he doesn't come back in his play option in 2 seasons? What happens then? I mean, I get why they didn't give him a long contract. We don't know if he's reliable and all that, but you tied yourself to someone who could easily walk away in 2 seasons.
Sure. I mean,
it's
a good gamble for both sides because I mean, I said this the other night. Kyrie Irving, I don't think is a injury prone player in that but at the same time, he also seems to get the silliest injuries. Like you go throughout his career, he has so many weird injuries, and feet stuff is going to be problematic for him, and he knows it. So it's like this was a good grab for him. I bet I have waffled so much to where I used to think he would ask out this season, but I actually I think Kyrie plays all 3 years here now. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's crazy. If he does, that would be amazing. But I don't know. But yeah. That's mainly the main things. And of course, I agree with you on Jaden Hardy. I think people are just too high on him. It's just
not anymore. I mean, it's like it's sad. He's plummeted. I feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I hope somewhere if he stays or goes somewhere else, he gets like a good NBA career. But I don't know if he's gonna be the great player that people thought he could be. I don't think so.
Maybe.
But yeah. But yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, please come back. I enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah. All right.
Have a good night. All right, coming up next is Micah and then Brandon, and then I will go to bed. Micah, what's up, man?
What's going on, Kirk? You having a good night?
I think we've had some good discussions about basketball generally and where the team's going. I feel this is why I like talking, because a lot of people get mad at me when we do more, where there's something about the way I tweet that just makes people want to stab me. And I think the talking is a lot. My wife thinks this is funny.
Can I address one of those real quick? That's got some people upsetting you.
Sure. Yeah.
Dude, for the love of God, noted beef stew. No.
Yeah.
That's my take.
My favorite was a gentleman, and he blocked me. That made me sort of sad. I don't like when people block me over basketball stuff. The guy tried telling me that he's in the 94th percentile of plus minus, and I was like, I don't care when you've won 2 games. I don't care. Yeah.
You know what, Kirk? Let's start with this. This has been my issue with the take all day. Is it's like, because you get the quick response of, oh, well, he's better than Powell. He makes 400% more. He better be better than Powell.
Yeah, $15 million is a lot of dollars for that dude.
And that's where I'm getting at. And
he's young though. I will give people that.
But my point is like, okay, you've watched enough Isaiah Stewart. You know he can't play the 4. So don't ask if he's better than Powell. Is he better than Lively? Hell to the no.
Right. Yeah.
So
that to me, it's more indicative of what Adrian said in the chat earlier, which was, is the move meaningful? Trading for Kyrie Irving is a meaningful move. Trading for JJ Redick, not a meaningful move.
Meaningful move.
So, yeah.
It's not just that. It's like my whole issue is just like, don't ask if he's better than Powell.
Mm-hmm.
If he's not better than Lively, and you can't play the 4. Like anybody that's watched him, he's.
Yeah.
And what's really got us in this situation is we keep falling for these freaking tweeners, Kirk. Like, we fall for the worst ones. The ones that are too small to play the 5 and not versatile enough to play the 4.
Right.
So that's my only thing with the move is just like, now we got lucky with signings like Exum and Derrick Jones Jr., but at the end of the day, we're paying a lot of guys starter money that can't start.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think with the way the salary cap is going, there's a little bit. Yeah. If you're playing, like you're paying a bunch of guys, like even the 6th, 7th man is going to be making 12 to 15 million. It's right. I don't know. I waffle both ways on that. I do think they're like tradable assets, and so it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's how to say this? It's almost like it's when you're looking at say a playoff rotation,
mm-hmm.
you want 8 guys and then 2 that can surprise you. That's pretty much like
right because the minutes are all accounted for. Yeah,
right. That's pretty much like how we won our championship in 2011. Yep. 5 starters, 3 great bench guys, 2 guys that can surprise you, like Sausage just smoking the Lakers out of nowhere.
Oh yeah.
Then not being able to play the rest of the playoffs.
That's right.
You know? So it's just like I think that's been our major issue for a lot of is it fine to have 1 or 2 guys that are making 14, 15 million that are bench guys? Sure.
Right.
Do you want 5 guys that are making 15 and 16 million and they can't start?
Well, I mean, it's hard to do because you really can't even do that unless you're drafting all your guys and keeping them.
Right.
So,
but I mean, that's kind of the situation we're in right now. We pay Holmes 12, he can't start. We pay Maxey 13, he can't start. Pay Grant 13, it's looking like he's a bench player. Same with THA 17, he can't start.
Sure.
It's just,
no, it's pain.
you got $100 million in your bench pretty much because none of those guys are starting caliber.
Yeah.
But you ended up paying them because you had no one else to pay at that time.
Right.
So it's just like if you look at, say, like the Nuggets, like how much do you think they're paying their 6 through 10 guy? You know?
I mean, they've used those slots primarily on like veteran minimums plus draft guys. I mean, Strouthers tonight is a better bench player. I don't know. He's not. I don't know. They just have real options, and like that. When you watch that, it's like frustrating because some of the guys who we thought were starters have now, were bench players, have been elevated to starting status in terms of like Exum and DJJ. And those were supposed to be your bench factors, and now you move the starters to the bench, and then those guys like your Josh Greens, your Grant Williams, just end up pissing you off.
They do, and that's the problem. It's just like, because I have this like I'm real old school in my thinking process, and it's just like I'm thinking that players are supposed to be messed up about somebody coming in and running your spot. Like it's like these dudes don't like. These guys that were supposed to be starters for us, they're acting like this is cool. It's cool that I'm getting outplayed by 2 veterans and 2 rookies. That's fine. Y'all have at it.
Yep.
It doesn't seem like there's a lot of pride in the old core. You know.
Yep. Man, thanks so much for joining. You got anything else?
No, that's about it. We're gonna be all right.
I agree.
Just breathe.
Yeah.
Just breathe.
Yeah. They need to get a little healthier.
We didn't think this. We thought this was a 6 seed coming in. Let's not change up.
I need Maxi Kleber to come back just so I can be mad at Maxi Kleber. Does that make sense? You know? What do you think of that guy?
When he scores 6 and gets dump trucked on defense.
That's right. That's right. Just to be pissed at somebody new. All right, Micah. Thanks so much, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, have a good one, man.
All right, so we've had David join in the bottom down there. I'm going to bring David up before Brandon. Brandon, I hope you don't mind. Thanks so much. David, what's going on, man?
Oh, man. Yeah, I've probably been on like 5 times, I guess, in the last year or 2.
Yeah, I feel bad letting people jump the line to a certain extent, but I hope my usual guys don't mind. But welcome. What you thinking tonight?
One thing I would say is like I know like a lot of like us talking about like Grant Williams isn't a starter for a championship team. We're not a championship team,
right?
So yeah,
good point.
I think and the other part is like when Kyrie's in and Grant Williams is playing and Luka are taking more attention, it opens him up more. He's able to shoot more. We just need a little bit more from him, but I'm not terribly like concerned about Grant. Like it's not great when it's just Luka and then Grant and Lively's not out there right now, but like I do feel like there is a piece that we can get. Like I know like you were talking about like a John Collins or a Kuzma. Like I think both of those would be great. I did mention beef stew in the in the chat like a long time ago. But only because when we play bigger teams, and you've mentioned it, like we play bigger teams. Like I saw today, like Tim Hardaway Jr. getting back down like 4 or 5 times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like at least he would be a body to stop the back down of that. Like, can he come in there and get some stops for us?
I think at that point you're just kind of mixing, like you're trading out problems.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But I guess for me, it's like, hey, like, and it's always about like having rotation players, and it's like,
sure,
could he be a rotational player of your top 8 players? Like, 7 to 8 players. I think he could probably play. If we're not having to give up a ton for him, but if the Celtics are in the same scenario of trying to go get him, like they'll get him. Like we don't have the assets for it, but yeah. The other thing I have was I was pretty excited about Omax. Like I'm pretty sure like all of us are, but like seeing him play, what do you think?
I loved watching him play in Summer League. And so the speed of the NBA game is probably the single hardest thing to judge when you watch basketball as a fan, which then makes me think it's clearly that much harder to judge as a player too, because Omax fit and played well in Vegas. He looked good. I was really pleased and thought he could come in and play immediately. I was wrong, because I think the speed of the game is too much for him right now. That might not be the case the whole year. I still get really excited when he plays, though. He's just so freaking big. Like I kind of thought he was their small ball center at points tonight. So, I'm going to be excited for him for 2 or 3 years. I think my window, and maybe people are going to be mad at me for this just because I have no patience for Hardy, but the sort of things that I think he can bring to this team just based on his size alone, they need it. And so maybe I'm just willing him to play,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I'd love to see him more on the Legends just to kind of get his numbers up. I mean, obviously right now that's not a thing because we're so injury prone, but like just getting him a little bit more accustomed to the speed. I mean, I know that, there's like some, stigma on the G League, but like G League's actually been pretty good lately. I mean, like a lot of great draft picks have been there. Like I'm in Austin, so I went to the Austin Spurs versus the RGV Vipers because I wanted to see Cam Whitmore play. Mm-hmm. And Cam Whitmore is just amazing out there in the G League, but he can't crack the lineup in Houston, which makes me think like he just probably isn't playing defense or isn't at a point where in his career he's like, caring about defense enough for it. But I don't know. I'm excited about Omax, but I just see him out there on an NBA team where he's like, guarding the wrong person or just like, takes a little bit to get down the court. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining. You got any other thoughts tonight?
No, I knew we were going to lose tonight, but I think everybody did. Like they're just, you've mentioned it before. Like when we played like the Nuggets, they're just so much taller than us and they can shoot. So
it's tough. All right, appreciate you joining. Hope you come back.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Brandon, thank you so much for your patience. What's going on, man?
Kirk, like Micah said, everything's gonna be all right.
I think that's right.
Quote of the day.
It's a good line. So any thoughts on the game or on the discussions we've had at large tonight?
Man, you know what? I'm in total agreement with you because I mean, I look at it like this. I look at it from like a futures standpoint. Like even with the first round picks, with the way that the Mavs are playing, it would be a mid to a low first round pick. So I'm kind of like, how valuable is it really going to be? So if you package that mid to late first round pick along with, these potential players, what would be the upside of it? I don't really see, a benefit of moving that. And even in the later rounds, like you said, maybe even if it's a 2027 or 2030, if the Mavs trajectory just keeps going up and they continue to play better, it equate to, later picks and, how valuable is that? So I don't see the upside of moving those.
Yep.
So it's not much of an upside. And then I'm looking at it like this, Kirk. I was looking at the standings, and I could be wrong, but to me, all of the teams that are, the Mavs are what, 5th in the West? It seems like, outside of Minnesota, the teams that are playing better than the Mavs, those teams are strategically built. And all of the teams that are below the Mavs are pretty much, teams that kind of did the musical chairs, kind of moved it around. Even though the Lakers are playing well, they're still not, right there with the Mavs.
Clear holes, yeah, like clear deficiencies in the team. Yeah.
There was a lot of moving, a lot of trades, a lot of, reactive stuff. As for like Sacramento, I bring them up a lot, but think about this. A lot of their players came from like three-team trades, 4 teams trades, free agencies, and a lot of dumpster fires. People were just getting sent to Sacramento. Oklahoma City too. They kind of built strategically, just kind of bad years, and they just stacked up picks and just kind of grow organically. And now they're they're playing really well. And I think that's kind of like a testimony of what could happen. I'm not saying that it will happen with Dallas, but it's something that could happen if you just, stay the course and just, sometimes you just got to, pick your losses, stay the course and pick your battles and, try to see what happens. But the little bit of value that we do have, I don't think is as important as some people really, it's not as valuable as some people think it is.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Well, you got anything else, or should we close up shop?
That's it, man. I just wanted to, say, I'm kind of in agreement. I don't really see a lot of potential in moving the guys because they're so young and they're so raw, and package them with a first or a second. Who's to say that we're going to get young, healthy guys? We got fresh legs, and Tim, even though he's a veteran, he's still pretty healthy. But there's always the potential of getting somebody that's KP situation. So to me, I feel like they should just stay the course, and if anything, work on developing those guys, because Hardy's not an off-ball guy, and they're not really showing any type of emphasis on making him off-ball guy, and they're definitely making an emphasis on switching up that offense because they got
to run more actions, some more set plays with different outcomes, because I'm tired of seeing high pick and roll with guys that aren't incandescent scorers and playmakers out of the pick and roll.
And what's so crazy, they're running high pick and roll around the 3. I mean, if you like the second half, they just played around the perimeter the whole night. It's like Denver just had to just draw a straight line and say, you stand on this part, you stand on this part, and we're just not going to let them even get close to the free throw line. And that's just that was the offense. Everybody played around the perimeter. Everybody shot. There was no flow. Exum, he was the only one, I think, him and Luka, that consistently attempted to make a 2.
Yeah.
Besides that, it was just 3s.
I agree.
And it's like they're so predictable. So,
yeah,
a lot of emphasis is put on the players, but what are these coaches doing to mix it up? They got to do something.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks so much for joining, as always.
Thank you, Kirk.
Okay, guys. I will not be on the Wednesday show, so it'll probably be just Josh doing a show with another Mavs Moneyball staffer. So no kind of after party like this. Like I mentioned, I'm still trying to get the Apple thing fixed. It's driving me crazy. But yeah, we'll be back. I'll be back, when games going on in the second half of the week. Mavericks play 4 times this week. This is just the first one. So we'll have a lot of stuff. So, all right, guys, this has been Kirk Henderson, doing a group therapy. Thanks so much for hanging out. Everybody have a great night, and go Mavs.